Alright YouTube, time for another video on Syria because of course now there's actually new information coming out that it may not pass congressional approval. That is that the strikes that Obama wants may actually end up blocked. There's at first, and this is why I predicted originally that it would pass through the Congress, that was looking primarily at the Senate, where Obama has a larger base of allies. Of course, he's got a few people on the other side of the aisle that are allies to him, at least on this issue. They may stonewall anything else he tries to do, but as soon as war is in the air, they're like, yeah, we've got to go and kill people. In the House, it doesn't seem to have materialized to the same degree as in the Senate. In the Senate, you see fairly decent support, about 50-50 or so. In the House, actually, there are a very large number of people who have already essentially said they're going to vote no. And damn whatever Kerry says, whatever Obama says, Hagel and all of these other people, that they don't care, that they don't feel it's an appropriate use of money. I think there are several things that are causing this. The first is that, and you can watch on C-SPAN, you can watch Kerry and all the others address Congress and take their questions. You can watch this. The first thing is that anytime they're asked questions by these congressional individuals, they dance around the question. They don't have real answers as to how this is supposed to be helpful, why targeting these installations is actually going to have any measurable positive effect, and why it won't just piss everybody else in the world off, especially now that we've basically just got the French on board. They haven't really answered that question. They haven't answered questions regarding intelligence. They keep saying, well, we'll take it in classified session. The problem being representatives are not like the president. The president has term limits. He's in his second term. He doesn't care what the public thinks about him largely. He may be, coerced into carrying some because for the benefit of his party not losing the midterms, but other than that, he doesn't really give a shit. Congress is not like that. They do not have term limits. A lot of these people are up for re-election, so when their constituents tell them, oh, we're not really on board with the war, or maybe we'll be on board, but here's questions A, B, and C we want answered first, that starts to worry people, especially in the House of Representatives. And so you have not seen widespread support coalesce around the idea of attacking Syria. Now, I predicted that it would pass. That was, however, before I saw that there are quite a few people in the House that have already said outright, we will not vote for a strike on Syria. And it's about a third of all the people in the House of Representatives. That means they don't really need that many more people out of the fairly large group of undecided individuals. They don't really need a lot of them to swing over to their side to stop an attack. But the people who are for the attack need almost all of those individuals to come into their camp because there aren't actually that many people who have said outright they'll vote yes. Here's the thing. It's still very unpopular in a lot of districts. I'm sure there are some areas, particularly Democratic-held areas, where it will be more popular, not because Democrats are more pro-war, but simply because Obama happens to be a Democrat. So they're not going to phone their congressperson and say, well, I'm against it because, they voted for the guy and they don't want to feel stupid or whatever. In Republican districts, nobody cares about what Obama wants or his approval or how he got elected. They're just against this because, look, we're going to waste money. We're going to waste time. There are a whole host of other countries who have said, wait, sit back and see what emerges. We're not exactly sure even, and Kerry will never admit this, but we're not sure who used the chemical weapons. The little bit of intelligence that they've released to the public is largely conjecture. It's not actual substance. Anyone can read these intelligence documents, and they can see that for themselves. So the public is not calling for this, the Congress isn't calling for it, and Obama, here's the other thing, and Obama and Kerry, his puppet, through Kerry largely in these briefings, has still not said that if a no vote is registered and Congress votes not to go to war, that they will respect the wishes of Congress. Because it's clearly, and Rand Paul, although I do not agree with all of his beliefs, much like his father. I think his father's better than him, but he's decent enough anyway. Although he's more of a limited government individual than a strict, what you would call an actual libertarian, he's more of a states' writer. But I'll give him credit for hammering Kerry, and that was funny to see some left-leaning groups come out and say, well, Rand Paul was made to look like a fool by Kerry. To most of us, it looked the opposite. Um, and he said, simply, his major concern is, if a no vote is given, will Congress be respected? Because Congress likes to have a little bit of muscle and a little bit of say in what goes on in this country too. It's not all about the president getting everything green-lighted that he wants to do on a regular basis. Congress has told him, essentially, you need to come out, or through Kerry you need to come out, and say that you will abide by our decision. It could very well be we will accept a strike on Syria, a limited one, but a strike nonetheless. But if you don't indicate that you're actually going to listen to the Constitution and to your own words from back when you were campaigning, by the way, and you're going to abide by what Congress says, what's the point of even holding a vote? And Rand Paul was clear about this. There were a few other senators and congressmen who were clear about this, that it's essentially a floor show with no actual meaning that's just delaying the time before you attack Syria if the decision made by Congress isn't going to be respected. Knowing Obama, he actually would ignore Congress, which is a huge, huge problem because the people don't want it, and the people use Congress to speak for them. It doesn't always work. It's certainly not a perfect system, but on a highly charged issue like this, traditionally Congress is more willing to work with their constituents because a lot of them are up for re-election. I guarantee most of the people who are up for re-election are not going to vote for a strike on Syria. Most of the Republicans are not going to vote for a strike on Syria. The pacifists among the left aren't going to vote for a war on Syria. And let's face it, this is a war. This isn't just striking. Even if only one missile is fired, that's an act of war. If Syria were to fire a missile right now at our ships, we would consider that an act of war, and we would land troops there. Why is it any different when we're doing it to them? It doesn't make any sense. Just because we're, the most powerful nation on earth doesn't mean the moral equivalent is different. It doesn't mean that the equation of morality is different. It doesn't mean that the ethics behind it are different, or that the political terms behind it are different. The only difference is we can get away with it largely because nobody can really attack our geographic extent without getting nuked off the face of the earth. But my hope is that, and I didn't have much hope of this before this it's actually a little graphic that's circulating that's showing these senators and congressmen who have come out and said plainly they don't intend to vote for it under any circumstances, or it would be very difficult for them to vote for it, and they would need a hell of a lot more reasoning behind it than they already have. I didn't have a lot of hope that Congress would block an attack on Syria. Now I do have hope. Because while the Senate is likely to greenlight it, the House of Representatives looks very unlikely to greenlight it, and it takes both. You can't just have one or the other. If the House of Representatives holds firm and says there will be no strike on Syria, the president is then forced into a very difficult decision. He can act on principle, and he can attack Syria anyway and face possible impeachment because guess what? All the Republicans who, by the way, control the House would love to impeach Obama, and they'll put it through. And the Senate is only narrowly Democratic. All it would take is a few peaceniks or a few constitutionalists to tip the balance and actually get Obama impeached. And all the Pelosi's and McCain's in the world wouldn't really be able to stop that. And there'd be a lot of people who right now are emailing and calling and writing their congressmen saying, I do not want a war on Syria. It would be unconstitutional if the president goes to war if we don't decide to go into Syria through Congress. Therefore, begin impeachment proceedings potentially if he ignores Congress. There are enough people doing that right now, and there are enough people that are involved in this to potentially get Obama impeached. That on top of all of the other scandals would probably crush his presidency. Even if impeachment were just attempted and failed, it would still be a slap in his face. So he's got to make that decision. Will he abide by Congress, which now looks much less likely to approve a strike, and thus he will look like a lame duck, essentially, because Congress said no to something that he put himself out there and said, there's a red line, he's crossed, we're going to go attack Syria. But we'll put it before Congress after much urging by the Congress. He either has to choose to look like a lame duck with no actual power, or to risk impeachment and potentially violate the Constitution. It would actually be pretty funny. I hope, even for this reason alone, I hope that Congress blocks this attempted strike on Syria. Because Obama's posturing and his reaction would be hilarious. It would be similar to after the gun control measures failed wildly. Joe Biden up there, he was like this after gun control failed. He was shaking his head and grimacing and crossing his arms and flexing his muscles, and he looked so pissed off and upset. It would be similar. Obama would be up there, well, I don't agree with this decision, but I can't do anything about it. You've had your cake, now I'm going to ram it down your throat. And, his reaction would be hilarious. He's obviously the sort of person who doesn't like to be told no. It's kind of like Bush. And Bush didn't like to be told no either. He would, sit on his little hobby horse and play cowboys and Indians in the White House, and whenever somebody told him a vote had failed, he probably chewed tobacco to get over the stress. The similarities are truly there. But now that it looks less likely that Congress will pass a strike on Syria, good. Congress can finally get up its fucking ass and do something decent. And finally make a bipartisan decision that people can support. Which is more than we can say for things like the NSA and Benghazi and all the stonewalling and all the filibustering and all the nonsense that's gone on in Congress for over a decade now, because Congress has largely been goofing off that entire time and has had its head in the clouds while imperial presidents told it what it can and can't do. It would be funny to finally see Congress wise up to these games and stand in the way of one of these people. Let's use the British as an example. Their prime minister wanted war based on faulty intelligence and faulty reasoning because he's an asshole. The House of Commons said no and defeated it, and he acceded to the wishes of the House of Commons. Let's see now if we can replicate the same situation here in the United States. Everyone should be calling their senators and congressmen. See, I don't have to do mine. Bernie's already said he's voting no. Welch has already said he's voting no. Leahy's probably going to vote yes, but there's nothing to be done about that. He was the author of SOPA, by the way. He's about the least trustworthy person in Congress. He will not be getting my vote. Sanders and Welch definitely will. After a Mosh amendment was voted for by Welch, I had great respect for him. He's calling his concerns about the Syria strike. Good on him. He'll get my vote. Bernie Sanders, he's never been pro-war. I don't even think he voted for Iraq, so yeah, he gets my vote too. Leahy can go fuck himself in the asshole. And basically that's the reasoning that should be used by anyone here who doesn't want to waste billions of dollars using a completely failed method to try to dissuade Assad. Because even if we take the intelligence at face value, is this really going to do anything in the long run? Is it really going to help the situation, or is it just going to make us look like a bunch of warmongering freaks who had a dick contest with the Russians, lost, and then decided to pout and fire a few missiles? That's exactly what it's going to do. And to hear Hagel there rant, or not Hagel, it was the other dude, the General Dempsey there rant about how Russia's not a superpower, although they've got a huge amount of tactical nuclear warheads and all these ships and stuff. That was just beyond insane. Oh, thing of the night last night, the most fucking worthless quote ever from Dempsey, which will show you his moral, upstanding nature, when he started talking about 9/11, and he said, well, in another week we'll be celebrating. Oh, I mean, not celebrating, but recognizing 9/11. That Freudian slip, above all, just should piss every human being off in this country. If there was ever another reason to think that these people are a bunch of scumbags, that one quote should be it. Peace out.